Have you ever felt a surge of lust so powerful that it seemed to override your rational thinking? Maybe you were minding your own business when, out of nowhere, a wave of intense desire washed over you. You didn't plan it, you didn't even see it coming. Some call this bad lust, not because lust itself is intrinsically evil, but because it can lead us down paths that compromise our values, relationships, or even our own self-respect. Why does this happen? Desire is a fundamental human drive. But like a fire, it can either warm us or burn us, depending on how we handle it. In this video, 5 ways to tackle unhealthy lust, we'll look at psychoanalytic theories, mythological and modern examples, and most importantly, practical steps you can take to channel this powerful energy constructively. By the end, you'll have a clearer understanding of what bad lust really is, and the tools to manage it. Ready to explore? Think back to the last time you felt an overwhelming urge. Maybe it was a split second of eye contact with someone, an unexpected thought that popped into your head at night, or even a random dream that lingered long after you woke up. Did you ignore it? Try to rationalize it? Or did you let the feeling guide your actions? Take a moment to ask yourself, where does my lust typically catch me off guard, and what do I do when it does? If you have a vivid example, great. If not, keep an open mind. Sometimes these hidden impulses are so subtle we barely notice them until they become too loud to ignore. From a Freudian standpoint, lust originates in the id, the part of our psyche focused on immediate gratification. The superego, meanwhile, internalizes cultural norms and moral standards, often labeling certain desires as forbidden. The ego attempts to negotiate between these two forces, but bad lust emerges when the id's urges are so strong that the ego struggles to keep them in check. We might feel shame, guilt, or confusion when our rational mind can't fully suppress what we crave. Carl Jung proposed the concept of the shadow, an archetype representing the parts of ourselves we hide or deny. When you push certain desires away, telling yourself, "That's not me, that's not acceptable," those desires end up tucked into your shadow. But repressed energy doesn't vanish. It accumulates, sometimes bursting forth at the most inconvenient times. Jung believed that to achieve wholeness, we must engage with our shadow, understanding and integrating even the impulses we deem bad. We see this dynamic in countless myths and stories. Greek mythology is filled with gods driven by lust that often leads to chaos. Take Zeus, whose affairs spark jealousy and drama, not just in his own life, but across the pantheon. Modern cinema offers a trove of parallels. In films like Fatal Attraction or Unfaithful, a moment of passionate surrender sets off a chain reaction of consequences. These narratives may seem exaggerated, but the core conflict is universal.
It's nice.
Desire can be transformative or destructive, depending on how we handle it. Have you ever been captivated by a story or film where a character's desire pulled them into a situation they never expected? Did you find yourself resonating with their struggle or judging their choices? Often we judge because we fear we'd do the same in their position. Reflect on that for a moment. So why label lust as bad? In truth, lust can be a force for creativity, connection, and personal growth. But it becomes problematic when it harms us or those around us. Maybe it leads to deception in relationships, fosters addictions, or sparks an identity crisis. Sometimes it's the shame and secrecy surrounding lust that does the real damage. If you feel guilty every time you experience desire, you might push it deeper into the shadows where it only grows stronger. Imagine a pressure cooker. The more you repress your impulses, the more they build up. Without a healthy release valve, they eventually explode. Our goal here is to help you release that pressure more constructively. Instead of demonizing lust, we'll learn to navigate it. Ready for 5 practical methods? The first step is to move from denial to recognition. When you notice a surge of lust, maybe an intense attraction, a fantasy, or a flirtatious impulse, call it what it is. I'm feeling lust. You're not labeling yourself as good or bad. You're simply describing an emotional state. This awareness disrupts the autopilot response, giving you a moment to decide your next step. It may sound simple, but naming an emotion can transform it from a vague urge into something specific you can manage. Next, become a detective in your own life. Does this bad lust flare up in certain situations? Late at night, during stressful periods, or when you're feeling bored? Keep a small journal or note on your phone. Document the time, location, emotional state, and even physical sensations. Patterns will emerge. Maybe you realize your lust spikes after arguments or when you've had too much free time. Recognizing triggers is crucial because once you know what sets off your intense desire, You can plan healthier responses instead of being blindsided. Freud introduced the idea of sublimation, transforming unacceptable urges into socially constructive outlets. Lust is raw energy. If you channel that intensity into a creative pursuit, painting, dancing, writing, playing music, you may find relief and even inspiration. Some of history's greatest art, literature, and inventions sprang from people grappling with powerful inner drives. You don't have to be a professional artist to benefit. Even physical exercise can serve as a release valve, allowing you to redirect lust into a form of self-expression rather than self-destruction. Desire that goes unchecked can destroy trust and stability in your life. If certain social settings, apps, or media content trigger your lust, set limits. This can mean reducing your exposure to content that fuels unhealthy fantasies or talking openly with a partner about your struggles. Mindful control involves creating a pause. Is fulfilling this urge worth the aftermath? Will I regret this tomorrow? Even a few seconds of intentional thought can be enough to steer you away from a hasty decision. Sometimes, no matter how much self-awareness we have, the force of desire is overwhelming. Consider therapy or counseling, especially if your lust leads to repetitive behaviors you can't break on your own. Therapists trained in sexual health, psychoanalysis, or cognitive behavioral therapy can guide you in pinpointing deeper emotional wounds or unhelpful beliefs. Support groups, online or in person, can also provide a sense of understanding and accountability. Talking openly about lust can be liberating, breaking the cycle of shame that often intensifies it. Picture Karen, a dedicated professional who prides herself on her discipline. She wakes up early, works out, and hits her career milestones. Yet, every so often, she experiences an intense wave of lust that seems to come out of nowhere, usually triggered by late-night scrolling through social media. She initially tries to suppress it, thinking, "This is not who I am," but it persists, leading her to late-night interactions she regrets by morning. Strategy 1. After stumbling on this video, Karen decides to take action. She starts by acknowledging the urge and tracking the times and emotional states that accompany it. Strategy 2. She notices her lust intensifies when she feels stressed or underappreciated. Instead of late-night scrolling, she channels that energy into creative journaling and running. Strategy 3. Karen also limits her social media use after 9 p.m. Strategy 4. And eventually opens up to a life coach about her struggles. Strategy 5. Over time, she finds more balance, realizing that lust isn't bad if she addresses it honestly and healthily. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by an urge that conflicted with your personal or moral boundaries? Which triggers in your life might be fueling unhealthy lust? How can you consciously transform your cravings into something that enhances, rather than undermines, your well-being? These questions aren't just rhetorical. Take a moment to really think about them. If you feel inspired, share your insights in the comments. Your story might resonate with someone else facing a similar challenge. We often equate lust with sexual desire, but it's broader than that. It can surface as an addictive pull toward power, possessions, or even attention. Any urge that overrides our sense of balance could be seen as a form of bad lust. The techniques we've discussed, awareness, identifying triggers, sublimation, boundaries, and seeking support, apply to many contexts, from romantic entanglements to addictive patterns in general. This is about regaining agency in any area where desire threatens to run amok. Now that we've covered the psychoanalytic underpinnings, examined examples, and introduced 5 actionable strategies, I invite you to take the next step. Try at least one of these strategies this week. Maybe start with simply acknowledging your desires when they arise, or keep a small journal of triggers and reflections. If you find value in the transformation it brings, share your experience below. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for more deep dives into the human psyche. We've taken a journey from the depths of Freudian theory to modern examples of how bad lust can manifest, exploring along the way how to turn this intense energy into a constructive force. Lust at its core is just a manifestation of our vitality, a signal that we're alive, capable of yearning, and open to experiences. It only becomes bad when it's ignored, denied, or expressed in harmful ways. By applying the 5 strategies we discussed, you can begin to reclaim control, transforming dangerous impulses into meaningful self-discovery. Remember, it's not about suppressing lust entirely, it's about guiding it responsibly. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. Until next time, stay curious, stay reflective, and don't be afraid to confront your own shadow. You might be surprised at the treasures you'll find there. Will you dare to face your bad lust head-on? Or will you let it remain in the dark, gaining momentum? The choice is yours. See you in the next video.